They never asked for this. They never chose this. Yet war found them anyway. Small hands that once held toys, now clutch bags, now cling to their mother's dress, now tremble beneath the sound of distant gunfire. Their playground are gone, their classrooms silent. The laughter that once filled the streets has been replaced by sirens, by smoke, by silence so heavy it presses on their tiny chests. They learn words no child should know. Checkpoint, missile, air raid, refugee. They dream of home, but home has no roof now. They dream of school, but the school is rubble now. They dream of tomorrow, but tomorrow feels like a stranger. They might never meet. Some of them draw pictures, not of flowers or sunshine, but of tanks and broken houses. Some of them speak in whispers, their eyes older than their years, their hearts carrying the weight of a war they cannot understand. But even here, even in the shadow of fear, they find small ways to be children. A marble game with stones, a paper plane made from an old ration slip, a song soft and shaky, echoing in the corner of a crowded shelter, because war can steal their homes, their schools, their streets, but it cannot steal their spirit. Not yet. Some of them no longer cry, not because they are brave, but because they've learned that tears do not stop bullets, and sobs do not rebuild walls. They sit quietly in the corners of tents, their eyes wide, their faces pale, watching the world fall apart, in slow, unbearable pieces. They remember their bedrooms, the color of the walls, the smell of their favorite blanket, the stories whispered at bedtime. Now bedtime comes with explosions, with sleepless eyes, with nightmares that do not end at dawn. The grown-ups speak in low voices. They say words like escape, like borders, like maybe tomorrow. But children know. They feel it in the tightness of their parents' hands, in the shaking breath, in the eyes that avoid theirs. They've seen too much. The ruins of their schools, the neighbors who never came back, the sky painted with smoke. And yet, somewhere deep inside, they still carry fragments of childhood. A game drawn in the dust, a giggle slipped between sorrow, a stubborn hope, quiet but unbroken, because even in a world cracked open by violence, a child's heart refuses to surrender completely. They grow older faster, not by choice, but by the weight of what they've seen. A playground becomes a battlefield. A school bag becomes a suitcase. A lullaby becomes a warning. To stay low, stay quiet, stay alive. The stories they tell each other are not of princes and castles, but of borders crossed, of nights spent hiding, of roads that stretch on forever. They trade toys for survival. They learn to recognize the sound of drones. They memorize the routes to the nearest shelter. And their games are played in the spaces between danger. Some carry old photographs, faded images of what life used to be. Others carry nothing but the sharp, unspoken knowledge. That childhood is a fragile thing, easily lost in the rubble of war. But even in the darkest places, there is stubborn light. A boy drawing on a wall with a piece of burnt wood. A girl braiding her friend's hair, pretending the world is still gentle. A group of children chasing each other. Their laughter raw, brief, but real, because war teaches them fear, but it cannot teach them to forget. How to dream. Not yet. Some of them forget their first language, not because they want to, but because survival speaks louder. New borders bring new words. New shelters bring new rules. And slowly, the songs their grandmothers sang fade into the background of unfamiliar accents. But deep inside, they still remember the smell of bread baking at home, the sound of their father's voice, calling them in at dusk, the taste of stories, shared over late-night tea. Now meals are silent. Now, home is a place whispered about, not walked upon, and yet they carry pieces of it in their pockets, in their eyes, in their stubborn, quiet hearts. Some refuse to forget. They write their names on walls that don't belong to them, They draw maps in the dirt, tracing the way back to a place that exists, only in memory now. Others build new homes, out of scraps and determination. A makeshift classroom in a corner of a camp. A tiny garden sprouting in broken soil. A football game played, beneath skies that still rumble with threat. They adapt, but they do not disappear, because even children of war carry within them a map no border can erase. They learn to tell time differently, not by clocks, not by calendars, but by the sounds, the hum of helicopters, the distant cracks of gunfire, the whispered news passed from tent to tent. Morning begins when it's safe to open your eyes. Night falls when fear grows quiet. And birthdays are counted, not by candles, but by survival. Some children carry dreams, stitched together with scraps of hope, to play football on real grass again, to sleep without shoes on, without the fear of running, to go back, even if they no longer remember what back looks like. They draw pictures of homes they've never seen. They hum songs they only half remember. They speak of countries that feel more like fairy tales than places on a map. And still they hope that one day the word refugee will not follow them like a shadow. Hope that the war will not be their only story. Hope that beyond this dust, this hunger, this endless waiting, there is a future that belongs to them. Because even children of war do not stay small forever. One day they grow, and when they do, they carry with them not only the scars, but the fierce, quiet fire of everything they survived. They are too young to carry such heavy memories, yet they carry them anyway. The sound of glass shattering in the night, the feeling of hands pulling them into hiding, the long walks through strange lands with no clear end. They see fear etched into the faces of the adults. They hear the quiet arguments, the tired promises. They feel the tension, like a thread stretched tight, ready to snap. But children are made of more than just fear. They are made of stubbornness, of small rebellions, of quiet strength that refuses to vanish. A smile shared over stale bread, a paper kite flying above the ruins, a whispered joke beneath the cover of night. In these small moments, they remind the world, even here, even now, childhood refuses to surrender completely. They fall asleep to the sound of distant sirens, but dream of blue skies. They eat in silence, but imagine dinner tables filled with family, with stories, with warmth. They lose their homes, but build new ones, in their minds, in their hearts, in the games they play between the shadows. Because war may steal their streets, their schools, their safety, but it cannot erase their will to exist. Some of them forget the sound of peace, not because they want to, but because noise has always been their lullaby. The hum of engines overhead, the rattle of trucks rolling in, the sharp crack of distant gunfire, echoing like a cruel bedtime story. To them, quiet feels unfamiliar. Stillness feels dangerous, because in their world, calm often means a storm is coming. They learn to read faces, like maps, a furrowed brow, a trembling hand, a hushed conversation near the door, signals that it's time to run, time to hide, time to be small. But children, no matter how much war steals from them, find ways to bloom. A game of hide and seek, through crumbling alleyways, a laugh shared in shelter, bright enough to cut through the dark, a drawing scratched onto a wall, bold and defiant. This is still my world, too. They carry invisible scars. They speak in borrowed languages. They grow up on the move, their memories scattered, across borders, camps, and checkpoints. But inside them burns a quiet defiance, a belief, fragile but fierce, that this is not all they are, not just victims, not just refugees, not just shadows of war. They are children, and children dream, even under rubble. Some nights, they forget where they are. The sky above them is the same sky from before. The stars do not care for borders, for rubble, for refugee camps. For a moment, They close their eyes, and they are home. The streets are alive with neighbors' voices. The air smells of bread and spices. The doors are open. The windows glow. Home, before it became a memory. But then they wake, and the canvas roof sags overhead. The cold creeps in. The quiet hum of uncertainty returns. They learn quickly. Memory can be a dangerous thing. It softens the edges of pain, but sharpens the ache of what's gone. Some choose to forget, to bury the old streets, the familiar songs, the language that tastes like home. Others refuse. They whisper their city's name, like a secret prayer. They teach their little brothers and sisters the words their parents taught them, words heavy with history, with longing. They carry the past, not as a burden, but as proof that before they were refugees, they were rooted. Before they were displaced, they belonged. And one day, they tell themselves, they will belong again, not in the shadows, not behind fences, but under the same sky, unafraid, unforgotten, unbroken. Somewhere along the journey, they stop asking when they'll return, not because they've given up, but because the answer never comes. The road stretches on, the camps grow older, the faces around them change, but the waiting stays the same. They measure time in new ways now, in the growth of a child, in the wrinkles forming on a mother's face, in the fading color of the tents, that once looked temporary, but now feel permanent. The promises of safe return echo like distant thunder, loud but never near, and yet they refuse to be erased. They carve their stories into the wood of school desks, into the concrete walls of unfamiliar cities, into the hearts of their children. They learn new languages, but hold tightly to old songs. They follow new rules, but carry the keys to doors that no longer stand. And every time someone asks, "Where are you from?" their answer is steady, soft, unchanged, because a map can be redrawn, a house can be destroyed, but belonging, that lives in the blood, in the bones, in the memory, no war can steal. One day, the stories will outlive the fences. The memories will outlast the rubble. The names, the faces, the dreams, they will remain long after the maps have changed, because what is lost in war is not always gone. It hides, it waits, it weaves itself quietly into lullabies, into whispered prayers, into the eyes of children who refuse to forget. The world may look away, the world may redraw borders, but these people, they carry their homeland where no soldier can reach. It beats beneath their ribs. It flows through their veins. It whispers in their sleep. And though the streets they love may be broken, though the skies they trusted may have betrayed them, there is still something unshaken within them. The quiet, stubborn belief that they are more than the war that chased them. They are more than numbers, more than headlines, more than forgotten faces in a crowd. They are history that refuses to be erased. They are hope that refuses to die. They are proof that even after everything, people still rise, people still rebuild, people still remember. And as long as they do, the story isn't over. It's only waiting to return home.